So hey y'all, welcome to my channel, and I'm sitting right now with a face full of character because this is a continuity video of the first two ones which we already made. So make sure you watch the part 1 and the part 2 and then you move on to the part 3 of the video. So today we're going to be talking about concealer and foundation. So let's work on this. It's such an important topic and let's get started. The first thing is to understand what exactly is this concealer and a foundation. Both of them are basically copycat products. They want to look like your skin. So they want to make sure that it's matching your skin tone and it's also matching your undertone. Plus it also wants to help with your skin type. Now you need to choose a product which is going to cater to these three parameters. So you have to check for your skin tone, undertone and your skin type every single time you go ahead and you buy a concealer or a foundation. Now let's understand what is the difference between these two if they're going to be kind of looking the same at the end. Now the concealers have a lot more coverage compared to a foundation. This is how it all started, that a concealer is more of a spot product, whereas a foundation is an overall product. You will use your foundation on the entire face, neck, and if you're doing body makeup, on the body too. So this is where your foundation goes. Whereas your concealer, because it gives you a lot more of coverage, you don't need that amount of coverage for your entire face. Hence, we use it only on spot areas where we want that additional bit of a coverage. Kind of like keeping a lining for a transparent top. So only some places have the lining, whereas some are left just like that. So wherever you want the coverage, you will use your concealer, and wherever you don't need the coverage, you can just go ahead with your foundation. Do you need to put concealer and on top of it foundation? I don't do that personally because I like lesser layers with my makeup. So if I'm putting concealer on a certain area, I start my foundation from here. That way there is no overlap and there is no a thicker kind of a layer in that area. It's just concealer and it's just foundation. This is how the entire concept started, but to the products which are available today, we have concealers which have low coverage, high coverage. We have foundations which also have low coverage as well as high coverage. So now comes the question, is there a really huge difference between these products and the way they perform? Sometimes yes, sometimes not. The best way to understand this is that there are certain concealers which give you so less coverage that you can just use a foundation in those areas, which is a full coverage foundation. So because of this confusion between this low coverage and high coverage foundation and concealer and how it kind of behaves all over, it's kind of like a really confusing topic. The best thing which I would like to tell you is to check on the consistency and the coverage. So if you want to pick a product, let's say you're picking a concealer and you're a person who wants that coverage, you have a lot of hyperpigmentation, you have these kind of characters that you want to cover, go for a high coverage concealer. Okay. Now let's say you're someone who barely has dark circles, you barely have pigmentation, or you're looking for a product to wear on a day-to-day basis where you don't want that much coverage. You don't mind a little bit of dark circles showing through. That makes it a lot more natural looking. If that's your vibe, then go ahead with a low coverage concealer. So let's start off by doing the skin. I'm going to start with a full coverage concealer and then I'm going to move ahead to a really medium to low coverage foundation. So step number 1 to start is to use a product which is a brush. I am using the Bougie Beauty B424. It's kind of like a concealer brush. It's a pretty good size which fits really well for my, this eye area. This is my way to measure whether that's the perfect concealer brush for me. So I'm using a concealer brush which is like this. It's a really nice shape. And I'm going to use the Huda's faux filter concealer. And first step that we gotta learn to do is to pick your concealer and not apply it directly. When you do this, you're going to use tons and tons and tons of product, and the product will not know where to go and it's just going to sit on your skin looking cakey, and then you're going to be not liking your base. So the first step is to apply it on the back of your hand or a makeup plate if you want to be a little more clean. So what we're going to do is to take a brush and we're going to take the concealer on the brush, use less, hold your hand more towards the back. That way you don't have too much pressure on your skin. You hold it too close, you're gonna like put too much pressure and the concealer is going to move and you're going to move your corrector also. So hold it a little towards the back. Okay, the next thing is to make sure that your patting instead of dragging your concealer because you already have corrector on your face. So if you drag, you're going to move all that corrector and then all that hyperpigmentation or acne is going to show through. So you want to use your product in a way that you are stamping it onto your skin like this. So that's the concealer on the under eye as well as on the inner area. If you remember, I do not have corrector here. Why? Because my dark circle is not that dark. So I'm just using just concealer in that area. Whereas here it was so dark that I had to put corrector and then the concealer on top of it. So I'm just gonna repeat the same on this side. So if you noticed, I have a bit of darkness over here which is not there on that eye. So I'm only gonna use some concealer on that area over here. So it's very, very customizable. You don't have to do the same thing on all the sides like how they show on Instagram because you don't really need it. So I'm just going to apply some concealer on my forehead. So we're going to do the foundation next. So that should kind of mesh everything together for you later. So as of now, we're just applying the concealer and covering up all that orangeness on the skin. If you're doing a full coverage foundation, you don't have to use a concealer at this point of time. You can directly jump to the full coverage foundation. Try it once and if it doesn't cover, then next time you add a concealer underneath. Otherwise, you should be good to go with just, a foundation. So I'm just going to finger tap all that green ones slightly into the skin so it all blends through. Especially the edges, I'm just diffusing the edges a little bit. Okay, so now using the concealer, I'm gonna pat that on my skin. So correcting and concealing is like totally skippable if you don't want that kind of coverage. Like if you don't want that completely flawless base, you can directly jump into concealer and a little bit of color will show through, your dark spots and acne and everything will show through. But if that doesn't really matter, you can directly jump into doing your foundation. That's kind of what I do most of the times. I do not color correct, I just directly go ahead with my foundation and concealer. But this series, I just wanted to focus on teaching you all the techniques. That way you can take what you want and you can leave out the rest. So it's just better to learn everything and then you can do what works for you and just kind of see what fits. And that should be good. Okay, so now that I've shown you how to kind of cover up all those kind of orange and green patches, let's understand the different kinds of concealer and the different kinds of foundation. So you have certain concealers which come in a cream format. You get some which are in a liquid format. Same with the foundations also. You have cream foundations, you have liquid foundations, you have powder foundations, you have mousse foundations, you have gel foundations. Your spray foundations, there are so many kinds of foundations, but overall the purpose remains the same. Okay, that's with both of these products. Now let's understand how to choose the correct foundation and the correct concealer for our skin. Now when you go shopping for a concealer and a foundation, try to understand what is your requirement. Whether you want a super matte finish and very long lasting kind of transfer proof foundation, or whether you want something a lot more dewy and a lot more kind of glowy kind of looking ones. That is the first thing to decide, which is the finish of the foundation. The next thing is to understand how your skin is. So if my skin is very oily, I can't use a foundation which is made for dry skin because that's not going to work on my skin. It won't even last on me. So I have to use a foundation which is made for oily skin and which does not contain oil in the formulation. Plus the foundation can also kind of give me the desired finish that I want. So you will choose a foundation depending on your skin type. That's the first way to decide. Now, once you have shortlisted a set of foundations, go to the store and swatch and check it. Now, how do we decide this? I recently spoke to a friend and she told me that there are 4 different shades of brown on her skin. So she's like, which shade do I choose my foundation for? The thing is that you need to identify out of these 4 shades which is your skin tone. Now there could be certain areas which are a lot more lighter, certain areas which are a lot more darker. Now which is my skin tone? Like, do I choose majority or do I just decide what is my skin tone? The best way to figure this out is to look at your neck. Now whatever your skin tone might be, even if you might be lighter, but if your neck and the body is going to be a lot more darker, you want your face to match the rest of your body. No, you don't want it to look like somebody else's head. So you want to make sure that the color is completely matching. Now, how do you make the color to match? You're going to swatch it from jaw to neck. So it has to match that area. So even if your forehead is a lot more darker, but if this shade is going to be used here and if you've taken care of correction, you won't get the grayness. So that area is going to end up looking a little more darker to match the overall skin tone. But the final result is that my entire face will be of one even skin tone. So no matter how many shades you have on your skin, identify that color which is closest to your neck to jaw. That is the area which is also going to make, like, you're going to realize that something looks wrong. So that's why we're matching it to our neck all the time. If you're a person, like let's say you're doing bridal clients and your bride is wearing a low cut dress, at that point of time, match it to the chest. That way, if the chest is very light and the neck is dark and the face is light, choose the color which is the chest. That way the overall color will end up looking the same. So choose depending on from which part of the body the color is going to go all the way up. Wrist, it's not going to help. You can see my wrist is a lot more lighter than my face. It's not going to work. Checking on the wrist, the cheek, all that stuff is not going to work. The next rule when you're going to find the swatches, do it in daylight. I cannot tell you how important this is. Check for the swatches in daylight. Go to the store in the morning and take a mirror with you. Put the swatches, get out of the mall, away from yellow light and white light and whatever lights they're using. Check in sunlight, see how it looks. Don't check on a phone camera, check it on a mirror, see if it correctly matches. Okay, that's another very, very important tip because they use colored lighting and you will not know the undertone of your foundation. Now, once you understand how to swatch it, next after that, wait for the swatch to dry completely because foundations have this problem where they start to oxidize. So when your foundation oxidizes, it gets a lot more darker than your skin. So you need to wait until it dries to see how it looks and then you see whether it matches your skin because it's going to dry at least 15 minutes after you apply on your entire skin and then it's going to end up looking totally different. So apply, wait, check, and then you decide whether that is the right foundation for you. The last thing is that when you're doing the swatch, don't rub it on your skin because when you're rubbing it and when you're gonna kind of diffuse it into the skin, it's gonna look super like as if it matches your skin. But when you're applying a thick swatch, it won't match your skin. A lot of times, especially in India, when you go to the sales assistants to kind of help you to find the product, they do that. Like they apply it and then they rub it completely into the skin. When you rub it, it completely looks all nice and normal. You come back home, you take more product, like how you have to cover your entire face and you start doing your makeup and then you realize you look like a ghost. So the best thing is to make sure that when you're applying it as a thick swatch, it's as close as possible to your skin. That will be the perfect shade for your skin. So I'm going to do a couple of swatches right now. That way you kind of understand how that's going to look on you. So I have a foundation here and this is my foundation of the day. It's like a low coverage kind of a foundation. I'm getting a mirror and if you see, I will swatch it from here to my neck. Okay. So it's right over here. It's darker than my cheek, but it matches my neck perfectly. Now, because it matches my neck, it's kind of the perfect shade for me, though it's darker, compared to the rest of my cheek area. Now, pat this onto your skin. Don't drag and don't move, pat. Just use your finger and pat. Do you see the color is kind of diffusing well into my skin? And that's your perfect match. Now, how do you do the entire face? You have a couple of options. One is you use a brush. Second is you use a beauty blender. You can choose whichever you're comfortable with, or if you're using one of it, stick to that. So I prefer using a brush. I use a buffing brush to do my base. So this is the Sugar Blend Trend foundation brush. I'm going to use that same L'Oreal foundation. I'm going to take like one pump of it on the back of my hand. So what I would do is to take the foundation on the brush and I would start working on the areas where I don't have any product. For example, this part of my face, I don't have any foundation on. So I'm going to start from that place, and I'm not taking it on the area where I've already done my concealer, because there's no need of it. No, like we've already got the right amount of coverage. So I don't need to go on that area. So we're going to start from here, and we're taking it. A very, very important thing for beginners, blend it well into your hairline, and you can even do it on your ears if you're not putting your hair down, and take it down to the neck. Take it towards the back of the neck if you're wearing a high pony, like slightly towards this area, the nape of the neck. Take it below also if you're wearing like a much more lower kind of a cut dress. And go section by section. How am I using the brush? Hold your hand more towards the back, less pressure, no round, back, front, up, down and everything. Kind of pat and flick, like I place and I flick, I place and I flick. I hope it's seen well, and I'll probably like zoom this out for you. So press and flick, and don't flick like long ways, then you're going to get those lines on your face. You use lesser pressure with a brush, and then you wouldn't get those brush strokes on your skin. Less pressure. I'm only holding my brush with 2 fingers and using the 3rd finger for support. I'm not holding it like this, I'm not holding it like this, and I'm not holding it too tight. I'm holding it in a way that if I actually leave it, it's going to fall down. So you hold it with really less amount of pressure. You pick the foundation when you need it, and then you just go really light across the entire face. So this will give me kind of medium-ish, light medium-ish coverage, but whatever I want to cover, we've already covered, so it shouldn't be a problem. So I'm patting and flicking, I'm patting and I'm flicking, I'm patting and flicking, pat, flick, pat, flick. So you can just continue doing that all across. Now, if you have facial hair and if you didn't remove it and all that, pull your brush, that flick, let it be in the same direction as the hair growth. That way the hair will remain flat and it won't stand upwards. So it wouldn't show that much actually. So that is one thing that you can always do. Leave the eyelids for now. We will deal with the eyelids when we do eyes. So we're just gonna blend it. Sides of the nose, underside, upper lip a little bit. We already have concealer, so we don't have to really go a lot. Oh, one more important thing. Concealers need to match your foundation. This is so important. I really can't tell you how important this is. There are different things called as highlighting concealers. I'm not talking about that. Talking about the coverage ones, concealer and your foundation should be of the same skin tone and the same undertone. Not lighter, not darker, none of that stuff. So because it's of the same shade, I'm not going to apply anything on these 2 corners, because there's anyways foundation on top. There's anyways concealer on top of it. So no foundation will go on top of it. I'm just blending this really well into my hairline, and that way, it does not show any patches on those areas. If you feel like you want a little coverage anywhere near the temples, like a little bit of the orangeness is showing through, then you apply some foundation. Otherwise, there is no need to apply foundation on those areas, because you've anyways covered it up right now. So avoid multiple layers, like, layering of concealer and the foundation. Let it be as less as possible. That way, your skin looks really natural and your skin just shows through your makeup. You want that. You just want the right amount of coverage. You don't want to overdo it. Okay, so once you're done with your foundation, give it a couple of minutes. Do not directly jump into setting it. Now, a tip for you is that if you see any kind of creasing, especially in the under eye area, what I would want you to do is to just use a Q-tip and remove that excess amount of product which is sitting in the creases. It's creasing because it's excess. So you take it off and then there's no chance it's going to crease. So this is basically how you do your base, and I'm probably going to do the entire setting part in the next video. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. I'll leave some product links for you down in the description bar below, so you can check it out and you find it helpful and useful. So let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys for another one. Until next time, bye-bye.